Friends, everything I planned for today went out the window. I had been thinking about the turning of the year and how our 3 congregations are making changes and building energy. I thought, good riddance, 2025. 2026 couldn't possibly be worse. How wrong I was. It started off by a U.S. invasion of Venezuela on January 3rd that came after weeks of bombing boats off their coastline. We used battleships and airplanes and all the military might we had to kidnap the Venezuelan president and his wife and bring them to a U.S. justice system. The illegal action was bad enough. Then on January 7th, ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, decided to invade Minneapolis, and just a few blocks from where George Floyd was murdered in 2020, Renee Nicole Good was killed by an ICE agent. Those of us who have seen the video over and over again are traumatized by this Kent State-like shooting of a peaceful protester. And the language from the U.S. leadership makes my stomach churn. Other protesters in Portland have also been injured by this blatant and unjustified use of force. As my colleague, the Reverend Jake Morrill, says so well, this president who thrives on fear and chaos has distracted us from his incompetence by unleashing untrained, unaccountable, masked, and armed thugs into American neighborhoods to terrorize families. People call this law and order. It is not law. It is not order. It is fear and chaos and getting off on punching down at the least of these. That was just the first week of 2026, just when I thought it couldn't get any worse. And we know they're not just terrorizing immigrants. They are terrorizing us all, trying to prevent us from protesting, from speaking out. But I gotta tell you, I can't wait for the next No Kings protest. We need 12 million people, y'all. I wonder how you are feeling in these times. Afraid? Angry? Isolated? Depressed? Maybe you're resolute, emboldened. I invite you to breathe for just a moment and think about what is it you're feeling. If you want to unmute and say it or put it in the chat, please do. And we can hold them in. We've been getting through it all somehow. What we do know is that our UU values are what will take us forward. They have the potential to move the whole country forward. And I'm not overstating it, and I'm seeing some things now, fearful, deeply disturbed. The collective work we do makes us stronger. As I read from Side with Love in our opening today, we are in solidarity with the faithful masses of people showing up to build a better world where the worth and dignity of all are held as sacred and unshakable truth. As people of faith and conscience, we are called by love to tell the truth about this violence, to accompany those most impacted, and to keep organizing toward fulfilling the promises of our communities and institutions to make safety, belonging, and freedom real for all. We are truth tellers. We show our love by working for the rights of people facing cruelty and oppression. We say love is at the center of our faith. Oh my, it's a little hard to keep it there right now. Right now, I'd find it really hard to approach an ICE agent with love, especially an armed, masked guy in full riot gear. In fact, I'm a little mad at about a third of the country that supports our government's actions right now. How can we do this as a people? This lame duck president, with the backing of all three branches of government, is emboldened to do whatever he wants to enrich himself and his family and his rich friends. It feels a little like an oligarchical authoritarian regime. I know many people have hit the streets this week in opposition to our U.S. actions in Venezuela and then in response to the murder of Renee Good. Protesters are being terrorized by ICE actions in an effort to reduce our peaceful, constitutionally protected right to assemble and speak. It now takes more courage to get out there. So you see, the cruelty is intended to silence us. Many have compared our current administration to Nazi Germany in the 1930s and 40s. Like in Germany then, our leaders have used force to round people up and imprison them simply because of their identity. People are being encouraged to rat each other out. I've heard people calling the police and saying, "Hey, you might want to check on my neighbor there. I think he's an illegal." No one's illegal. You see, the administration has been very successful in finding an other to blame for all of our nation's woes. Immigrants have been characterized as garbage, murderers, and rapists, and Trump has said, "We don't want them here." Immigrants have been blamed for eating our pets, for taking all of our jobs and all of our homes, for receiving benefits that should go to hard-working Americans, also known as white people. This was the Nazi playbook. Blame it all on the other. In Germany, it was the Jews. Round them up and get them out of here. When there is an other to blame, it frightens the public and they become more willing to go along with the cruel oppressions the administration uses. These repeated messages of fear take hold. Thank goodness we are a thinking faith and a truth-telling faith. I do take comfort in knowing that while the German people had to work underground against the Nazi regime, in the US we're working above ground in visible and loud opposition. But the administration is assembling its own brown shirts, thugs posing as ICE agents by offering $55,000 a year with benefits and no background checks. Training has been reduced to 47 days, the number of Trump's presidency. Yep, tough guys with guns. Somehow, we have to not be afraid, and it is so hard to not be afraid. I'm afraid, and I'm probably one of the safest privileged people around, surrounded by a middle-class suburban bubble with white skin and US-born privilege. My challenge is how to use that privilege in addition to showing up as often as I can. The first thing I have to remember, always, is that I'm not alone, and I can't do it alone. We are not atomized, isolated people. We have a community. And if we don't trust our neighbors, we can at least trust other UUs. Our nation was built on civic organizations and small groups working together. As the capitalist world we live in becomes increasingly individualistic, we lose that important civic sense of cooperation. 20th century Unitarian minister James Luther Adams, also known as JLA, recognized the value of civic life when he had a conversion experience in Germany in the 1930s. He was in a crowd somewhere arguing with some Nazi sympathizers, as a good UU might do, when someone grabbed him and dragged him down an alley. The man who grabbed him claimed he was saving him from a beating by the Nazis he was arguing with. It's basically, don't do that. While frightening, that did not stop JLA. He went back to Germany several times and had more frightening interactions. In Germany, Adams attended the confessional seminary, which was forbidden to meet. Adams wrote, "Repeatedly, I heard anti-Nazis say, if only 1,000 of us in the late 20s had combined in heroic resistance, we could have stopped Hitler. He began to realize that for a democratic society to survive, it had to have voluntary associations to assume civic responsibility. When he was at home in the States, he asked himself, if fascism should arise in the States, what in my past performance would constitute a pattern or a framework of resistance? He could only give a feeble answer to the question. He said, my principal political activities had been the reading of the newspaper and voting. Oh, I had preached sermons on the Depression or in defense of strikers, and occasionally I uttered protest against censorship in Boston, but I had no adequate conception of citizenship participation. He plunged himself into voluntary associations concerned with race relations, civil liberties, and housing problems. He became a doorbell ringer and a precinct leader. The church, Adams further argued, is also a voluntary association. It cares about the psychological and spiritual well-being of its members, of all of us here, and it organizes and shapes direction of our collective behavior to promote social, political, and economic change in the wider world. In Germany, the church has abdicated that responsibility. Adams argued that we freely choose which associations to belong to. We are not born into them like a family. We are not in them because the political state requires it. Voluntary associations, Adams insisted, gain us the power to negotiate our own internal feelings with others in a way that enables us to gain power as a group. Power enables us to negotiate changes in the non-voluntary associations that rule our lives. So you see, organizing builds power. Isolating gives up power. I hear our triangle congregations talking about who do we partner with in our local communities. And the way we partner with each other as a triangle group really matters too. And while it may not be in direct opposition to the U.S. oppressive regime, it is how we build a better world. We are working against fear and division, working against isolation, organizing with the wisdom of history that says we cannot give up, that we can create a better world. We are not giving up on each other. We must not give in to cynicism. I heard a little story about cynicism on the TED Radio Hour a week or so ago that brought home the idea of building a better world through cooperation. Jamil Zaki said, in 1972, 45% of Americans thought that most people could be trusted. By 2018, that had dropped to about 30%. That was in 2018. I wonder what it is now. He writes, we are living through a cynicism epidemic. And here's the thing. You might think that cynicism is a system upgrade that allows us to see who we really are. It's not. It traps us in a version of the world we don't want to live in and one we don't have to. He goes on to say, one of my favorite studies of all time occurred in southeastern Brazil. 2 fishing villages that are separated by just 30 miles. One sits on the ocean where fishing requires large boats and heavy equipment. To make a living there, fishermen must work together. The other sits by a lake where fishermen strike out alone on small boats and compete with one another. Years ago, researchers tested these people in each of these villages and how they responded to a set of social experiments. Ocean fishermen trusted strangers and cooperated with their neighbors. Lake fishermen competed and mistrusted instead. But here's the crazy part, he said. These folks didn't start out any different from each other. But the longer the fishermen worked on the lake, the more they competed. The longer they worked on the ocean, the less they competed. Some families, schools, and companies are like ocean villages. People trust because they know others will earn it. Some are like lake towns. People look out for themselves because no one else will. Our social worlds shape us like clay into hopeful or cynical versions of ourselves. And right now, many of us are living in a lake town of historic proportion. I invite us to remember this story and these distinctions as we try to craft our future. Clearly, the lake people are on the rise when we need more ocean people. People who cooperate and learn to trust one another through reciprocity, give and take. Organizing builds power. Isolating gives up power. It's a simple message, isn't it? We build a freer mind and heart when we work together. The current regime is doing its best to keep us apart, afraid, and alone. JLA argued that the church needed to be out there too, and we are. We see a large contingency of faith leaders in solidarity in Minneapolis, and the UUs are there. In a daily meditation, Brian McLaren wrote, "Our world is deeply fractured. We see the symptoms all around us. We see it in politics. We see it in social media. We see it in our families and denominations. Those fractures couldn't come at a worse time. We need to come together as never before to address our environmental and climate crises, to resist authoritarian movements that have the power of billionaires, the power of social media and AI at their disposal to divide us further and further. We need to come together to explore better ways of living with ourselves, with one another, and with this sacred, beautiful earth. For spiritually alive people, for people of deep and genuine faith, we don't want to surrender to despair and cynicism, reactivity and fragmentation. We want to be healed and empowered so we can participate in healing and empowering the other people." I originally planned to talk about how we could happily put 2025 behind us, sweep it off the edge of a table. And yet, here we are, with escalation. Columnist Michelle Goldberg reminds us that millions of people throughout the country have refused to surrender to bullying. MAGA is losing elections. People are using the courts to resist, and Trump is really very unpopular. The lies they tell are increasingly ridiculous. Friends, we are moving in the direction, even if it feels like we are not. It may get harder before it gets easier, and it may take a decade or more to rebuild our values as a nation working to become a more perfect union, dedicated to the principle that all of us are created equal with unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so we UUs surround ourselves with the love we need to go on. We follow the ideals of our faith. We attend to our values and learn from our ancestors like James Luther Adams. I know we will do what we can to take hold of the rudder that is steering this ship. We rise in love together. We hold one another in love and care as we do the hard work in hope. Let us sweep away cynicism and despair of 2025 and look forward to changing hearts. We rise up from the wreckage. Rise up with tears and with courage. Rise fighting for life. May it be so, and may we make it so.